welcome everyone to today's Synergist product demo webinar introducing the Vortex3 and wireless technology air sampling. I'm Kay Bechtold, Managing Editor of the Synergist, the magazine of AIHA. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially Casella for sponsoring this webinar. Today's product demo is scheduled for 30 minutes, and we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to dive right in and quickly introduce today's speaker, Justin Stewart. Justin has been Casella's area business manager for about 5 years, supporting the company's health, safety, and environmental boundary monitoring solutions. He assists in the reduction of workplace and environmental health exposures through the supply of effective monitoring solutions for noise and dust. He is particularly experienced within the aerospace and defense industries and uses his in-depth knowledge of sensors, wireless data transmission, and industrial hygiene monitoring to support occupational assessment programs. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Justin.
Awesome. Thank you, Kay. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. And so my name is Justin Stewart, Area Business Manager for Casella. I cover the South region for us, so it's about 17 states. I like to give a little introduction also on Casella before I start these presentations. And I joke that Casella was founded in 1799, so we're a startup company. And one of our first customers, if you will, was Charles Darwin. So I think that's sort of a fun fact. And then a lot of folks know us in our background for noise. They know us for sound level meters and noise dosimeters. But we actually made one of the first air sampling pumps in 1961. So air sampling is nothing new to us. And I'm excited about this presentation because the Vortex actually completes our pump family. We have a low flow, a mid flow, and now the Vortex complements and brings the high flow portion to our pump portfolio. So I'm excited to go through this presentation. I think for existing pump users, folks that know us and have used the Apex, we've added a couple little nuggets and gems within Airwave that I think you're really going to appreciate, and I'll go and highlight those. And then also, it's going to be very similar on the form factor. So if you're already used to the Apex, it's kind of works one and the same with the changing of the flow rate and all the things that you love about the Apex. We brought that over to the Vortex3 as well, so it's easy to use. So with that being said, I'll jump right into the presentation. So with the Vortex3, we decided we wanted to sort of tackle a problem with the market. We noticed existing pumps were quite large, sort of cumbersome to carry, typically weighing 10, 15 pounds. It was typically an exercise. Whenever you wanted to do your measurement, it was hard to carry all the accessories and also the pump, and then you had to lug 3 or 4 pumps at a time. And so we thought we could tackle this problem and put some innovation behind it, and also with our design and sort of clean up the look. Like I said, most existing pumps being heavy, they're loud, they're kind of was a chore to get everything unpacked. And then also with little nooks and crannies, the decontamination made it pretty difficult to clean the unit. So it was, like I said, it was an exercise every time you wanted to do your testing. And so we hit the drawing board, we saw a problem, we talked to customers, and we thought we really came up with a design that works well for everyone with the Vortex3. So with the Vortex, you're going to have high flow being right at 12 liters per minute. It's rugged and light, so we're right at about 4.5 pounds. The unique interlocking design allows you to carry multiple pumps at once. It's Bluetooth enabled, so it works well with our Airwave app, and it's also IP65 for the decontamination and cleaning of the unit. And this is what I was talking about. So it's a patent pending, it's a unique design as far as being able to carry the units. It's a comfortable handle, comes in, so it's very lightweight, ergonomical. The tubing can actually attach to the head of the pump. So like we talked about, you don't have to carry the accessories with you. You can actually tie the tube, and it has the mast built in. So when you go and set up the pump, it's easy to transport and kind of make setup a breeze. And with the rugged design, it was built for strength and a smooth finish. So you can appreciate being able to clean the unit, the smooth edges. We don't have any weird out-of-place bezels or things that you have to open or to clean out or maybe get under the unit. With that smooth design, I know one client mentioned with his decontamination process, they actually built a setup or a system that cleans the pumps, and being able to set it up and sort of a one-stop shop where you could set it up, decontaminate, dry off, and you're done, versus having to open up these special attachments or flip the pump over, and just you eliminate that difficulty of the setup. So it can kind of make things a breeze. With the one-way valve, there's no small crevices. And then on the performance side, we have about 4 hours of runtime at 12 liters using a 0.8 micron filter. And then we also accomplish industry-leading flow accuracy at plus or minus 5%. One thing on the display, so this is what you're going to be familiar with, very similar to the Apex 2, up, down arrow, and as far as you have a back button, a start key, up and down to change the flow rate. I mean, super simple. What I like is you're able to see, so if there's a fault, it will flash. So you have the indicator lights just like on the Apex. You have the flashing red if there's a kink on the line. And so you can actually see it from a distance at the plant. It's with that color coding. What's nice is the operation with the raised buttons allows you to actually work and use the units with gloves. So if you already have your PPE and everything set up, you don't have to take the gloves off to maneuver and set up the pump. You can do it all in one with the unit. And then also with the keys being for the simple use, when you go to set the flow rate, it's literally you press the up arrow, set your accomplished flow rate, and then press run. It's that simple. To stop the unit, you press the stop button. It gives you that usual countdown, 3, 2, 1, and then stops the unit. What's nice too is if you're going to measure multiple sites throughout the day, and I already have, let's say, even like an 8-hour flow rate, I can set my 8 hours. It will remember the previous setting, and then I can walk through and then go to my different areas of testing and then accomplish my measurements that way. One thing that I always like to mention within the controls or the setup of the unit, with the status indicator light, it's nice to be able to see a battery indicator, not just based off an arbitrary bar, but with actually the amount of life that we have remaining. So on the battery life, hey, do I have enough to actually make this measurement? Do I have enough to get through my testing today? It'll give you an hour ratio based off the flow rate that you're running. So you're not looking at just a bar that looks red. Maybe it could be questionable if I can get through the run or not, but it'll give you like that countdown. Hey, you actually have the full 4 or 5 hours remaining on the actual unit. And then this will kind of go through. You can get a better snapshot of what the pump, the display of the pump, the up, the down arrow, the power, the on off, and then the start and the stop key being on the far right. And again, with the raised buttons, you are able to use these with gloves. And on the actual overview of the pump itself, so we have the standard Vortex3, and I know for clients that mentioned, hey, I just want a pump. I really just need a number. I don't need to go through. I just want to collect my sample. I don't need the Bluetooth. I don't need to record. I'm fine with just walking with a pad of paper. Something a little bit more of a basic or entry-level pump. So we have you covered there with the Vortex3. We'll call it like the standard model. Then you have the Vortex3 Pro, which gives you the Bluetooth, the battery gauge that we talked about, the pressure indicator, and the ability for the remote starts and stops. We also have the full range of accessories available. And then you can use the units with main power supply. So that's one thing, and we'll touch on that more, is so when you're running at your 12 liters, say if you're running hot and heavy and you need a little bit more battery life and a little more umph, you can plug in and use the main charger or the inline power and complete your measurement and test that way. And that will give us a segue to our Airwave app. This is what complements and works in conjunction with the pump. It also is what's utilized, and what's nice is you can actually look at your Vortex, your Vapex, and your Apex, so the low flow, the mid flow. You can actually pull up all your pumps running at once using Airwave, and you can do a snapshot and look at your noise dosimeters as well. And you're getting that same sort of data and summary page. So speaking about as far as just the Vortex itself, things we can do with Airwave, we can start and stop, we can pause the unit. Typically it's about 50 feet range, so standard Bluetooth depending on the walls or any interference. Works on Android and Apple iOS. You can see like a snapshot of the run information. You can like cut sort of an at a glance. So if we have, let's say, 4 or 5 pumps running at once, I could see, hey, pump number 4 has a kink in the line or something's going on there. The flow rate's set at 0, or maybe we came back and it's not running at the flow rate we thought. It's a quick snapshot, and you can go in there and maybe if it was stopped for whatever reason, we can play, or maybe go in and make an evaluation. And what's nice about Airwave too is on a consultant level, maybe if I don't need to suit up with PPE that day, I don't have to suit up. I can just pull up the snapshot on my phone, and then once the test is over, I could email myself a report without actually having to interfere with someone's person or jump on site, having the full dress, and I could just literally sit out in the truck and collect my measurements if I wanted to. And then one thing on the download of the data that we did for you here that wasn't available on the Apex is you're actually able to see the pump memory and save the data now. And I know that's been something folks have been wanting to see within the app. So we have that for you now. So you're actually able to save the data within the application. You can also see the site data, so wherever the recording was done, you actually get a Google Maps with a longitude and latitude, and you can actually sort of map it out within your report, which makes it nice for your location. And then you can email yourself, like we talked about, so after you're done with your test, you can email yourself the report. And then one thing you can do within the app, I know a lot of folks still like to use a notepad. You can actually jot down the site name, or you can apply the site name within the app. You can add location, the worker name, so like it's John's at wheel housing number 3, and then you could also apply like a little note that will feed back to the report. So anything that you wanted to tally, maybe something came up within the measurement, you can, or within the test, you can apply that all within the application instead of walking around with your notepad. So it makes things nice and easy for you. One thing Airwave does as well is we'll work in conjunction with our flow detective. It allows you to do the calibrations of the pump. You can do remote checking, the starting and stopping. What you also can do with the calibration side is you can also use the flow detective and calibrate within less than 10 seconds. And it does a full loop calibration, which we'll talk about here in the upcoming slides. Here we go. So on the closed loop calibration, you can actually use your media and do an A to Z, and it's the only calibrator that I know on the market and system that I know that actually measures the full degree of pulsation as well. So that way you can kind of ensure, okay, within the sample train attached, am I actually doing a true calibration? So the flow detective works nicely with Airwave and also complements the rest of our line and our portfolio of the pumps. And then when you're using the flow detective, the way that works is you set your flow rate, you hit calibrate, it turns from yellow to green. And then once it's completed, you send yourself an emailed report, and it almost stamps it for your pre and your post calibration. That's it. And that's, I don't know how to make it much simpler. So we tried to make things just simple, just like how the pump works. You set the flow rate, you press calibrate, and you're done. Now you're ready to go on to your next activity or your next test, your measurement, and you can move on about your day. So we didn't want you fumbling with a set screw or having to some bubble or anything like that. We try to make things super simple for you within the calibration. Also so when you're using Airwave, it's not a separate system. So I get asked that question a few times. It's okay, when I'm doing my calibration, do I have to have a different app? Will it work with Airwave? Will it interfere with the other pumps and the dosimeters? The short answer is no. You can pull up, it does it as a separate aside. So you'll see the Apex 2, like what's listed here on the slide. You'll see your Apex 2, you'll see your Vapex, and you'll see your flow detective. And then you select flow detective, and it will automatically find the different pumps available to calibrate. You'll check your serial number, cross-check your serial number to make sure that you have the right pump selected, and you press calibrate, and then you email yourself the report. It's that simple. Once you're able to find your pre and your post calibration, you really want to make sure ensure that your flow rate was set correctly. And again, you're able to add those note fields. So maybe you want to jot down the model number, or instead of the model number, the where and the location. Again, eliminates that need for the clipboard or the notepad, and you can identify that within the report and send that along with it, as well as the mapped location. So you can sort of do an ID check of where you were in the plans, or where you took the measurement. And then within the report, you combine your pre and your post check, which calibrates your post-run averages. And then if there's any flow deviation, that'll also show up here. Gives you sort of a summary of what it looks like, very similar to what you're going to actually see as the snapshot of on your Apex and your Vapex. So our heavy power users are going to be very familiar with the breakdown of Airwave and the flow detective as well. This gives you a sort of a snapshot window of what Airwave looks like when you do that initial screen grab. So you're looking for which serial number, what flow rate, so to ensure the flow rate, how long it's been running. If we experienced any faults, we'll work on a green, sort of a green, yellow, red system. So green, pump is running, red, the pump is stopped, and then yellow, the pump is paused. Actually, it's blue if the pump is paused, excuse me. But then it does the same thing as nice on the countdown of the pump, where you do the 3, 2, 1, the pump is engaged. It'll turn from green to green, or red to green. And it also gives you an indicator on the pump that is actually engaged with Bluetooth. So you'll see a sequence of red and blue lights flashing. So again, if you're at distance in the pump, you do a quick glance, okay, why isn't my phone engaged? Hey, just take a look at the pump and see if it's actually connected via Bluetooth. Also, on each of our pumps, we have an advanced setup mode. So you can actually do your configuration. You can run the diagnostics, you can do the advanced setup. So the different parameters that we've talked about today, you do not need a separate piece of software. It is available, but you don't have to lug around a laptop. That's what we tried to eliminate, was having to bring out the laptop each time I'm wanting to download a report or make any changes to the pump. You could do it right here, either using the app, or you could also utilize it with the advanced setup mode. So if you're out there on site that day, you're able to actually make all your adjustments on the fly versus, again, setting up your computer. So as we talked about, this is our entire pump family in our portfolio. So as we mentioned earlier, we have the Vapex, which is our low flow pump, the Apex, which goes to 1 to 5 liters, sort of that mid flow range, and then the high flow being 5 to 12 liters with the Vortex3, and they're all complemented by our Airwave app. You can also use Airwave for the noise dosimeter, so you're able to actually see all of the entire portfolio that you have running using one app. So I wanted to leave some time for questions. I hope I didn't talk too fast. If you had anything, it's more of a kind of an open forum so we can go through any questions that you have. A little bit about our Casellaâ in the U.S. Our home office is in Sterling, Massachusetts, and I'm based out of Dallas, but so if you need something quick in a pinch, we ship out of the United States. We also, for calibration, we do the full cal as well. So quick turnarounds, we have everything in stock. Apex 2, Vortex, those are our bread and butter. So we can meet a lot of the requirements for shipping that you need, and you're not having to wait. And then also from a technical standpoint, I can list my number. If you need someone, you don't have to track. If you have a technical question, you don't have to track anyone down in the factory. I can handle most, and we can jump on a webinar, or from a technical standpoint, we can help you. So I'm here to support you, and we can open it up to questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Justin. It looks like we have about 7 or 8 minutes for questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the chat window on the right side of your screen and send it to either all panelists or everyone. Justin, the first question I have is the app functional between both the Android and iOS systems? Is there a preferred platform for Casellaâ?
That's a good question. So yes, it is functional on Android and iOS, and I think they might be asking this. We had a couple hiccups. So I know Android older platforms, so like Jelly Bean, gave us some hiccups initially, but I actually have an Android for my personal phone, and it works. The app works smoothly now on Android and Apple iOS without any issues.
Okay, great. The next question I have is there a Wi-Fi function to/from a computer as well for remote monitoring?
No, so not on Wi-Fi, it's just Bluetooth. And then it has, so like with the Apex has the docking station, and then you use the USB cable from the dock to the software. So you kind of can slice it a couple different ways by either sending yourself the emailed report or syncing through the dock and setting it up on the software. So you have both ways.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question I have is what makes the Vortex3 different from other high flow air sampling pumps out there?
So yes, that's a really good question as well. So I would say the added technology, kind of like what we covered at the beginning. The lightweight. When I presented this last week at the Florida AIHA, I actually carried this guide, the Vortex, on my backpack. I strapped it to my backpack, and then also had it running, so folks were able to see. So most pumps that I know of in the market are about 10 to 12 pounds. This is coming in at 4.5, plus the ability to connect 3, versus having to say, okay, I'm going to start my test. Let me have that whole setup. Let me lug those over. Let me bring 3 or 4 pumps. Let me get my accessories. It's nice to have that all in one complete package, and then being able to chime in with your phone, not having to go through, okay, what flow rate, what is that at? Let me jot that down. You can save it all in the app. You press play, you run it. Once you're done, you email yourself the report. So a lot of those, I wouldn't necessarily call them problems, but things that folks wish they had. So if you kind of created a wish list when we came out with the Vortex, these are the things customers were asking. They didn't want to, especially for decontamination, it was a process. To get the pump on site was process. To carry all the accessories was process. So those are the things that we addressed with the Vortex.
Okay, great. Thanks, Justin. The next question I have is what is the back pressure capability of the Vortex3?
Yeah, so that is another good question. So we'll go up to about 10,000 liters. So if you're running at 12 liters using a 0.8 micron filter, your battery life is right about 4 hours. We have a nice chart that I can include in, so I guess depending on what you're running at, I will include that chart here in the chat so everyone can see it. So then if you can sort of break down what flow rate you're running at, you can look at the actual back pressure. Let me do that. And that kind of will break down. I'm going to screen grab it and I'll put that in there.
Okay, great.
You want to go to the next question while I'm doing that?
Sure. The next question I have comes from Christopher, who asks, have you measured how loud the unit is? I know it could depend on back pressure / flow. Thank you. Great job.
Yeah. So from like a decibel standpoint, no, I haven't. I know, let's see. So I've had these units running during, let's say, a presentation. I'm trying to think of a good example to, because I'm trying to think of what I could compare this to. So I've had the units running 3 at a time during a presentation, essentially at a booth while someone was presenting 10 feet away from me, and they could not hear the pump running. And that's kind of the beauty of it. The only time that, as far as you're able to actually hear the pump, as far as with an actual sound or vibration, is when the pump is kinked or the line is blocked. And that's when it will start to flash red at you. That's the only time it will actually engage where you're like, okay, I actually hear the pump running. It's almost like a, I guess you can compare it to sort of like a background noise of a fan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Justin. I think we have time for one more question or so. Well, one I have is using Bluetooth, what can you do on the pump with your phone?
Yeah, of course. So you can start, you can stop, you can pause the unit, and you can email yourself the report. You can also do the little live look-in. So let's say I don't want to necessarily jump on and get the full summary. I just want to know if my pump's running. You can do the little quick snapshot look and say, okay, is it running at the flow rate I said it is? Is it running? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. Within the app itself, on the emailed report, you can get the location. You can identify the worker name. You can jot down any notes. So that way, like we mentioned before, you don't have to walk around with a notepad. What else? I think that's kind of the biggies on the highlights.
Okay, great. I just have one more question. Someone's asking, did you say Sterling, Massachusetts? Just curious.
Yes,
Okay.
and that changed. So which everyone probably knows us for being in Buffalo. We changed this year to Sterling, so we are in Sterling, Massachusetts now.
Okay, great. Justin, I'm not sure if that PDF that might be to your own file system. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, okay. Yes, it is. Hold on. Let me. Yeah. You're right. Let me pull up. Hold on.
I think that's all the questions we had too. So one more sec, but I don't think I saw any other ones.
Okay.
So Justin, while you're doing that, I might go ahead and just start wrapping up here. So it looks like we don't have any questions left, so we'll go ahead and conclude today's product demo. Just a note, we'll be sharing all questions from today's event with Casellaâ, so if there's any questions that come in right at the end here, we'll be able to pass those along. So I wanted to thank Justin Stewart for his presentation, Casellaâ for sponsoring today's product demo webinar, and to all of our participants. And I just saw that link looks good. Thanks, Justin. I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have registration open for a upcoming Synergist webinar. That'll be on April 28th. It's called The Role of Big Data in EHS, and it's sponsored by SGS North America. And thanks again to everyone, and hope everyone has a great day.
Kate, may I mention one more thing?
Of course.
So on Casella Solutions, We also have webinars that we'll host here, and then also from Tim and some of the technical support specialists in the UK. We'll also host, you can sign up for our webinar series. It's not necessarily a sales wind-up, but we'll do different things as far as maybe best practices. It's a little bit more of an open forum, so you can jump in and ask questions. We'll do noise segments, dust segments, we'll have area monitors. So we do different things that you can sign up for at casellasolutions.com. And then you can also engage us. We have YouTube videos that also has helpful tutorials. So if you also have any more, like, hey, what was that again that you mentioned on the Vortex and you didn't want to go through the slides, we have the YouTube videos as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time. This was fun.